Royal News Live. Kate Middleton channels Princess Diana with powerful message ahead of Addiction Awareness Week. Kate implored people not to judge or criticize those suffering from addiction. The Princess of Wales has channeled Princess Diana as she delivers a powerful message urging the public to not judge or criticize those suffering from addiction. As the Princess of Wales, Diana was renowned for her work to tackle stigmas among the most vulnerable in society, a sentiment echoed by Kate ahead of Addiction Awareness Week. In a written message, the princess highlighted how every addict is a human being with a story of their own. In a bid to tackle the stigma associated with the issue, she called on everyone to support charities helping addicts and their families by changing the way we think about and consider the many people coping with addiction. Addiction is not a choice. It is a serious mental health condition that could affect any one of us. By acting with humility and compassion, we can all make a difference and support those who are suffering, she said. Kate is patron of the Forward Trust, an addiction charity, and her involvement in the Awareness Week comes a few months after the princess announced she was returning to public duties following the completion of her chemotherapy treatment. A staunch Kremlin critic described as Putin's #1 enemy said the struggle is just beginning as he was knighted at Buckingham Palace. Sir William Bilsbrowder was knighted in the King's birthday honours after years of lobbying governments to introduce sanctions against human rights violators and kleptocrats. His company Hermitage Capital Management was once the largest foreign investor in Russia. The British-American financier and activist was made a Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George by the Princess Royal during an investiture ceremony at Buckingham Palace on Thursday for services to human rights, anti-corruption, and international affairs. Sir Bill began his campaign work in 2009 following the death of his lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, who died in a Moscow jail after exposing a tax fraud involving Russian officials. Speaking after the ceremony, he said, "This is an award to recognize the fight that I've waged for 15 years for human rights and for justice after the murder of my lawyer Sergei Magnitsky in Russian custody." A detective from Northern Ireland who survived a murder attempt has said he feels honored after receiving the King's Police Medal. Detective Chief Inspector John Caldwell, who survived a dissident Republican murder bid, was presented with the medal by the Princess Royal at Buckingham Palace. It comes after he was recognized in the King's birthday honors list earlier this year. Mr. Caldwell was shot a number of times in front of his son by dissident Republicans at a sports complex in Omagh, Co-Tyrone, on February 22, 2023, as he was packing up after coaching a youth football team. Speaking to the PA news agency on Thursday, Mr. Caldwell said, "I'm feeling very happy, feel very privileged, feel very honored to be, firstly nominated, and then to receive such a very nice medal from the King." The Princess of Wales has channeled Princess Diana as she delivers a powerful message urging the public to not judge or criticize those suffering from addiction. As the Princess of Wales, Diana was renowned for her work to tackle stigmas among the most vulnerable in society and became a prominent philanthropic force in her lifetime, using her stature to raise awareness for countless humanitarian issues, from the AIDS crisis to landmines. In 1987, she famously shook hands with a patient who had AIDS at London Middlesex Hospital, challenging the false belief that the illness could be transmitted by touch. Much like her late mother-in-law, Kate has strived to tackle stigma as she spoke out ahead of Addiction Awareness Week. In a written message, the princess highlighted how every addict is a human being with a story of their own. In a bid to tackle the stigma associated with the issue, she called on everyone to support charities helping addicts and their families by changing the way we think about and consider the many people coping with addiction. Prince Harry could reportedly cite the decision to provide Taylor Swift with a police escort as she performed in London in his own security case against the government. The singer was provided with an escort to Wembley Stadium in August after a foiled terror plot forced her to cancel her shows in Vienna earlier that month. The Duke is currently embroiled in his own legal battle against the Home Office over their decision to remove police protection for him after he stepped down from official duties. Though he lost the case this year, he is due to challenge the ruling in the Court of Appeal. The Telegraph has now reported that the Duke could use the decision to provide Swift with police protection to bolster his own case. The Duke's spokesman declined to comment, but a source close to the situation told the newspaper, "The decision to provide a police escort for Taylor Swift has exposed troubling inconsistencies in how protection decisions are reached." They added, "The dangers to Taylor Swift were and are real, but so are those faced by Prince Harry and his family. There may well be no imminent threat, But there is always risk that can be mitigated by the tactics used by the Met Police on the day. It looks as though Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand may still be months away from launching, as lawyers for the Duchess request an extension for her trademark application. Meghan originally soft-launched her brand American Riviera Orchard back in March, with prospective customers told to join a waiting list to keep them updated on products, thought to include jams and other lifestyle goods. However, the brand has suffered a series of setbacks in the months since, meaning they are yet to begin trading. Her initial trademark application was refused by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, in September, noting that American Riviera was a common nickname for Santa Barbara. She was given 3 months to address the issue, with lawyers now filing a request for another 3-month extension. A top former aide to the late Queen has revealed the crisis talks that took place as Boris Johnson was diagnosed with COVID. Lord Young of Old Windsor lifted the lid on how he had intervened at the last-minute to stop a face-to-face meeting between the then 94-year-old monarch and the former Prime Minister, averting potential disaster. He recounted events from early April 2020 that saw Mr. Johnson admitted to hospital with COVID-19, shortly after the imposition of the first lockdown. He told peers, "I stopped at a bus shelter to take a call from the excellent Martin Reynolds, the principal private secretary to Boris Johnson. We knew that the Prime Minister had gone into hospital the night before, but his protection officers had overheard some consultants discussing how they were going to tell Carrie, his now wife, that he might have to go into ICU and onto a ventilator. Clearly, I had to update the Queen on this," Lord Young added. "We had our suspicions because, just the previous Wednesday, the final face-to-face audience at Buckingham Palace had been scheduled. The Prime Minister considered it his duty to be there to do it face-to-face, and the late Queen considered it her duty to, in a sort of blitz spirit, well, I've got to die sometime attitude, but it really was not the moment for taking unnecessary risks. In the end, both participants were so keen to go ahead with it that Martin and I arranged for him to tell the Prime Minister that the Palace wanted to cancel, and for me to tell the Queen that number 10 had got cold feet, which was very lucky because, by the end of the telephone call, the Prime Minister had started coughing. The next day he received a call from the then Cabinet Secretary Mark Sedwill, now Lord Sedwill, that Mr. Johnson had tested positive for COVID. The Princess of Wales has urged the public to change its attitude towards those dependent on drink or drugs, saying addiction is not a choice. Kate highlighted how every addict is a human being with a story of their own, and it is not our place to judge or criticize in a written message to mark Addiction Awareness Week. Kate is patron of the Forward Trust, an addiction charity, and her involvement in the Awareness Week comes a few months after the princess announced she was returning to public duties following the completion of her chemotherapy treatment. Kate said in her message, "Everyone suffering from addiction is another human being with a story of their own, which many of us don't understand or see. It is not our place to judge or criticize. We must take the time to sit by someone's side, learning the values of love and empathy, being a shoulder to cry on or an ear to listen. These simple acts of kindness are crucial in breaking down the misunderstandings that so many face. Addiction is not a choice. It is a serious mental health condition that could affect any one of us." The Prince and Princess of Wales have expressed their sadness at the death of teenage photographer Liz Hatton, saying it was an honor to have met such a brave and humble young woman. The 17-year-old, who died on Wednesday, pursued a photography bucket list after being diagnosed with an aggressive and rare form of cancer at the start of the year. Liz, from Harrogate, North Yorkshire, hit the headlines when she was pictured being hugged by Kate at Windsor Castle in October after being invited to take pictures of William at an investiture. William and Kate, who herself was treated for cancer this year, said in a person,